Hi there, I'm Elaine the Heart Healthy Cooking Lady. Today I have my friend Jesse with me. You might remember him from Hell Babies. He's going to show us how to make roasted butternut squash soup, which since it's jam-packed with veggies, I'm including in the veggie review. So Jesse, tell me what we're going to need for this soup and
Absolutely.
we'll get going.
So, of course, you'll need a butternut squash. This one's sort of medium to large size. You'll also need about 2 cups each, a little bit less than 2 cups of onions, and also an equal amount of carrots. Those are going to be your 3 main vegetables. You're going to need also with that about 3 bay leaves. I use small ones. If you have larger ones, take it down to 2. A sprig of thyme. Usually I use like 1 or 2 because I've got thyme in my garden, but if you have dried thyme, usually about a teaspoon of dried thyme will work for that. Nutmeg to taste, salt and pepper, and a little bit of olive oil as well for cooking and for covering your butternut squash when you roast it. Also, in addition to that, you're going to need about a half a cup of condensed skim milk. So just comes in a can, really cheap at the store. And about 32 ounce, a little 30-ounce box of vegetable stock or chicken stock. You want a stock that doesn't have a lot of flavor to it. So you don't want to use like beef or pork stock, because the flavor is just way too strong. So something that's not going to overpower the subtlety of the butternut squash. And that's it. Yeah,
Okay,
those are all the
cool.
ingredients. The best way I found to deal with this is to cut off cut the bulb from the neck. Yeah. But use a chef's knife and just kind of get your fingers out of the way and just rock it back and forth. Okay, so now you've got the neck separated from the bulb, and now this is when you're gonna peel it. Here, I just took a vegetable peeler to it. It peels rather easily. That's one of the nice things about butternut squash is the skin tends not to be as hard as some of the other winter squashes. Okay, so now we got our 2 halves nicely peeled, and so now we are going to actually cut out the seeds for the bulb section. Remember, flat surfaces are always your friend when dealing with this, so always put it on the steady flat surface, and then just cut down through the middle of that, and now you can just seed this. All right, so now that's, whoops, get the seeds out of here. Clean up my mess. All right, and so now we can just begin to actually chop these into manageable pieces so that we can roast them. And you want the pieces to be pretty much uniform. Squash is all broken down. See, it doesn't take much effort. So now we are going to just take about a tablespoon of oil and just drizzle it all over and kind of work it through so like the surfaces get coated with just a really light coating of oil, like all over the veg. So now turn this out into a pan with some parchment paper. I always like parchment paper. Makes cleanup so simple. And you want a single layer. Okay, so now everything's in the pan, nice single layer. All right, and then you just put this in the oven at 350 and just roast until it's tender. Now we're gonna saute our vegetables. Again, we got equal parts carrots and onions. So we're gonna turn this on to medium-low heat. Okay, and so now we're going to put in our second tablespoon of oil. Okay. I have tried roasting the onions and carrots with the butternut squash, but what I found is by the time the butternut squash gets done, the onions have burned.
Yeah.
You know, so it's just best to do this on the stove top. Right, and I'm just kind of tossing that lightly just to get that coated with a little bit of oil and salt. And you add the salt while the vegetables are sauteing because that kind of helps draw the water out of the vegetables and helps them to cook, a little quicker too. I'm going to cover that just a little while, just for a couple minutes, let that kind of steam. This is the meditative portion of cooking. Yeah, that's looking good. All right, when this is about halfway done, this is when I add in the bay leaves and the thyme. Again, you know, I use sprigs of thyme because I just have it in my garden, and I just throw it in whole. I will fish these out at the end once everything's done, though, because that's really kind of what you're looking for, is to make sure these carrots are at least somewhat tender. I mean, it's still got some time to boil, but you know, your onions are nice and translucent, and you know they've still got a little bit of bite to them, though. You know, so we're gonna let it go a little bit longer, but probably not too long, because now the pan's starting to get a little dry. You know, and I don't want the onions to burn. So at this point, I'm just going to put in a little bit of stock. Just to kind of deglaze the pan and also to give the vegetables a little bit of liquid to steam and finish up cooking. Then we're gonna just a tiny bit, because the bulk of the stock we're gonna put in after the butternut squash is in, because how much squash we have is gonna really determine how much stock we use.
Oh, okay.
So at this point, the vegetables are at least, you know, 3/4 of the way done. At that point, I just put the lid on, turn the fire off, and then just wait until the squash is done.
Okay.
Because we're gonna. Okay. Okay, so these smaller pieces are nice and tender. Larger pieces, not so much, but you know what, that's okay. But then at this point, you transfer all of your squash pieces.
Nice.
All right, and so now we're gonna pour in our stock. And I usually kind of do it by eye. With this amount of squash, you're probably going to use most of it. You know, there's probably, feels like there's about that much left of the stock in here. So we're going to bring that back up to boil. All right, so that, yeah, we'll leave that at medium. Put the lid on there. And then just let that cook for another 5-8 minutes.
Okay.
You know, just so that everything comes to temperature, you know, flavors start kind of combining. Okay. So now we're gonna just check this out. Watch out for the steam. All right, and so what I'm doing is just want to make sure that these carrots are nice and soft, and they are. It's like I'm just pressing them against the pan, and they crush nicely. You know, same deal with the squash. Everything's good. All right, so now we're gonna fish out all of these pieces of spices that we had originally. So this is when you always want to keep in mind how many you had at the beginning. So there's one. If you tie these all up in a cheesecloth, you know, you actually may avoid having to fish out, but I don't think you get all the flavor if they're all bound in a cheesecloth. You know, so that's just.
Yep, I think so too.
It's good, good. Okay,
that's all that matters.
Right, that's all that matters. Okay, so now we get to puree. So probably the best way to do this is with an immersion blender. I'm going to actually turn this off in the meantime so I don't have stuff boiling while I'm pureeing. All right, and okay. And when you start to puree, you'll notice like the soup's going to get a lot thicker. And you know, so this might be the time when you'll begin to consider adding in more of the stock or not, you know, depending upon. All right, so it's just going to be just a little. The pan's just a little. Shallower, so it's kind of spitting back at us. So I'm going to tilt this a little bit so that that gets submerged. Okay. You know what? And I'm going to actually I'm going to go ahead and just put in the rest of the stock. So perfect. Just make sure you know, your spice balance is good.
Here you go. I happen to have spoons.
Okay. So, salt's good. We're going to put in now our cream and then a little bit of the nutmeg. They like to fly. I always use fresh nutmeg because it lasts longer. The flavor is a little bit more intense when you use fresh and it lasts longer. So typically with this, just use a microplane grater. And for a pot of soup this size, I mean, you know, you kind of just do it to taste. But, you know, I'll usually put in probably about, you know, there might be about a 1/4 teaspoon of fresh nutmeg. If you're going to use the stuff that's already ground, you might want to bump that up to about 1/2 teaspoon.
And what kind of grater did you say that was?
This is a microplane grater, so if you look, they're very fine. All right, and then finally we finish this off with our 1/2 cup of condensed skim milk, and just stir that in. Hey. That's it.
Hey, well, let's dish some of that up. I'm really anxious to try it. And what's really cool about this is we figured that each 2-cup serving, which is quite a bit, is only 186 calories. It's pretty good. 6 grams of fat, 3 grams of protein, 32 grams of carbs, 222 milligrams of sodium, which is also very good, and 4 grams of fiber. And so this ladle has 1/2 cup in it, so if you'd like to ladle up 4
4 per bowl.
4 per bowl.
And it's very filling too, so.
Well, one of the reasons I like having Jesse here to cook is he always makes such delicious stuff, and then we get to sit down and eat it. So thanks for coming.
Oh, no problem.
Yeah,
Thanks for having me.
All righty. And once again, this is Heart Healthy Cooking with Elaine. If you like this video, please like this video and subscribe to my YouTube channel, Healthy Cooking Elaine. And until next time, here's to healthy cooking. And thanks again, Jesse.
You're welcome. Thanks.